let's talk about the Quad Cortex. I have been using a Quad Cortex for all of my band Carcosa's live shows for the past year or two. I've had one for a number of years, but today we're going to be revisiting this piece of gear. So even though I've had a Quad Cortex for quite a while, I've been pretty bad at keeping it up to date. To be honest with you, it's actually been locked into a rack that my band rolls into the venue, plugs in, and plays. So pretty much the day that I got the device, I made a guitar tone, and I pretty much haven't changed it since. Neural DSP is constantly updating this device, so there are a ton of new amps and models and features on the device that I have never even tried because I made a tone I was happy with, and I never really explored it past that. Until today, so that's gonna change. What we're gonna do in this video is set up a completely blank tone from scratch. We're gonna create a heavy as 8-string guitar tone using the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. After I show you my process and the guitar tone that I make on the device, I am also going to do a live playthrough of one of my band Carcosa's songs using that tone. In addition to that, this video is also sponsored by Sweetwater. If you're not familiar with Sweetwater, they're one of North America's largest online music retailers. If you're interested in grabbing a Quad Cortex for yourself or pretty much any other piece of music gear, go check out the link in the description and the pinned comment below. And also be sure to stay tuned to the end of this video because in collaboration with Sweetwater, I am also giving away a Neural DSP Quad Cortex. So this could be your chance to win one just in time for Christmas if you live in Canada or the United States. So be sure to stay tuned till the end of this video to find out all the details of that giveaway, and let's get started and make a new guitar tone together. So I'm going to plug the Quad Cortex into my PC because Neural DSP has launched the beta version of the Cortex control software, which basically allows you to control the Quad Cortex using your PC or Mac, and that is the way that I prefer to make tones. It's what I'm used to since I'm the most familiar with plugins. So we're going to do it that way. So you're going to be seeing a screenshot of that software, not a camera on the device itself. But just know that the software is literally just controlling this device. I just personally find it a lot easier to edit tones that way. So that's what you're going to be seeing. And as for the guitar that I'm using an Aristides 080R. This is the guitar that I use live for my band Carcosa. It's in drop E tuning with an Evertune and a Seymour Duncan Pegasus pickup. This is the guitar I use almost every single night, so obviously it makes the most sense to build the tone with this guitar in mind. Now let's switch over to desktop view and start making that tone. Okay, so now we're switched over to desktop view. As you can see here, I am going to start out in my current preset, which is called Carcosa Scene. So just to give you a little taste of what I've been working with for the past couple of years, it sounds like this. So it sounds pretty sick. Like I said, I've been really happy with this tone for the past couple of years, but we're gonna just start straight from scratch. So the first thing we're gonna do is go up here where it says Carcosa Scene, and we're just gonna make a whole new tone. So let's go to Bank 4A Unsaved, and this is gonna give us a completely blank patch, which will literally just give us a DI. So nothing's going on. Let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to want to do obviously is add an amp. So the way that you can do that is, as you can see when you hover around on the screen, these little pluses pop up, and this is basically where you can add a block of whatever you want. So let's start off with adding an amp. Go over here. We want a guitar amp. Obviously, this is where you can see the list of the ridiculous amount of amps that are included with this device. I personally always prefer a 5150 type tone. The one that I was using with my previous tone, which I believe was a 5153 red channel, or whatever it's called in here, which would probably be like the EV1013 red, something like that, is usually the tone that I am used to. But for the sake of trying something new, or at least slightly new, let's go PV505, which again will be pretty similar, but just a little bit different. So let's go ahead with that. Now you can see we have this block right here, which is the 505 or 5150 type thing. It's going to sound terrible because there's no cab. So before I even play, let's go ahead and add a second block cab and then add a cab into the mix. Just for the sake of getting something really quickly, let's just pick something with V30s because that's typically the metal tone that you're used to hearing. Angle Pro V30 probably will sound pretty good. This is probably based off of obviously an Angle cab. So obviously the tone sounds pretty bad so far, but at least we have an amp and a cab going on. The other thing that I already know I'm gonna need before we even begin is a noise gate. My tone relies heavily on a ridiculously intense noise gate, so we're gonna add that right at the beginning of my chain here, which I believe would be a utility. And then we have a couple of different options. We have an adaptive gate, simple gate, utility gate. All three of them are basically noise gates. I think if I remember correctly, I used the utility gate, or no, sorry, the adaptive gate, just because it has a very simple control. And I'm gonna go ahead and crank that way up to like 75%-ish for now. And now we have a noise gate, an amp, and a cab. Again, it's probably not gonna sound very good, right? And we can hear that that noise gate actually isn't doing quite as much as I want it to. So we're gonna switch it back to adaptive gate and crank it all the way up and leave it at that. So let's try that out now. So again, I'm just looking for it to cut off my tone really, really quickly. Now, obviously this amp is sounding not very good. So if you click the amp block, this is where you can start to see all the different controls. We're gonna bump up the master to like 5-ish for now, just to increase the volume a bit. And then we're probably gonna bump up the gain to like, I don't know, 6-ish. Reduce the bass by quite a bit, bump the mids and treble and presence. Again, I'm kind of just guessing at this point, and let's actually hear how that sounds. So still not quite what I want. There's definitely a ridiculous amount of bass, but at least we have that volume a little closer to where I want it to be. The next thing I'm gonna do, because again, this is what I would do for pretty much any 8-string tone, is add in another block, and we're gonna add a tube screamer or something equivalent to that. So again, in front of the amp, I wanna add probably overdrive. Yeah, something in the overdrive section. So again, there are a ton of different options here. I think the green 808 is probably like an Ibanez tube screamer type thing. The way that pretty much every like gent or deathcore tone does it is the overdrive at nothing, tone at nothing, level at max, or sorry, tone at max, level at max. So let's hear what difference that made really quick. Again, makes a very big difference if we turn that off really quick. So it really helps tighten up that low end, which when you're tuning all the way down to drop E is super, super important. I'm still not loving that tone, so we're gonna go back over to the amplifier and play around with some of these knobs. Probably gonna reduce the bass even more to like 3. Let's bump the presence up. We're gonna go all the way for now. Obviously way too much. Sounding a lot closer to where I want it to be. The presence is a little bit high though, so I'm gonna reduce that a tiny bit more, get a little closer to 7. That sounds a bit better. We're gonna mess around with the mids, go full, and then reduce from there. It's a little too much in my opinion. I think it actually did sound better closer to 6. Okay, that's sounding better. I'm gonna reduce the depth as well, because that's probably adding some unnecessary like resonance and bass frequencies I probably don't want. Okay, that's actually sounding pretty decent so far with a very, very simple setup. We're gonna go back to this cab and play around with this. First and foremost, I have a monotone going on, so I actually don't need this second mic at all. So we're just gonna go ahead and turn that off. And we're gonna play around with just the left side of the cab. Never mind, I stand corrected. It doesn't matter if both are on or not because both of them are pan-centered, which is what I wanted. I just wanted to make sure that my tone is going to sound its best when it's mono because I am not running a stereo rig. Cool. Okay, that sounds pretty decent. I'm not loving this cab necessarily, so I'm gonna switch it to something else really quick and just hear if that makes a big difference or not. We're gonna switch it to, what other V30 type cabs do they have going on here? We got a Bogner style vintage 30. Sounds a little better, a little bit brighter, a little more trebly, which I think I like. Let's try this one. That one also sounds pretty decent as well, actually. Ooh, that's the one right there. So it's like kind of CA standard OS, so probably California standard oversized, something like that. The name doesn't really matter, it just helps you get an idea of what noise you can probably expect when you click on it. That sounds really good to me. I actually like this one the most so far. Okay, that's sounding a lot better. I'm actually going to leave the cab alone as is for now. So I think if you just double click it, yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have like a very, very basic rhythm tone, pretty much good to go with only these 4 blocks. So again, noise gate, tube screamer, the amp obviously, and a cab. So now that I switched that cab, I actually think that some of these amp controls need to be changed a bit. I think it actually sounds a little bit better with that depth brought back up a tiny bit because this cab in particular seems to be a little bit more trebly. Maybe a little bit less, like let's go down to like 4-ish. Okay, that sounds good. And I decreased the presence again because it was just a little overkill. So what I'm gonna do for now is go ahead and save this before I accidentally overwrite it. So we're gonna call this like Carcosa 2024 tone, getting ready for the future. Cool, and then get out of here. Just to make sure I don't lose this and accidentally switch to a different preset or something like that. So yeah, like I said, this is like a very, very basic rhythm tone. We're gonna tighten it up even more now. So what we can do next is add some additional EQ shaping after the cabinet. So we can go and add an EQ. Let's just do a graphic 9-band. That was probably the easiest way to do this. So what this does is obviously gives you 9 different frequency ranges that you can mess around with. I'm not going to go too crazy here. I know some people really, really like to go hard with this stuff. I'm just going to reduce like 4 kilohertz a little bit, and 65 hertz quite a bit. Again, just getting rid of some of the bass and then some of the annoying treble frequencies. Let's hear how it actually sounds. Cool, so especially getting rid of that 4 kilohertz range sounds way better. I probably went a little too overkill with it. I'm gonna try boosting 500 hertz because that's kind of like that nice like low mid range, which kind of sounds good sometimes. In this case, I think it actually sounds better without that boost there. Cool, and then I just want to reduce 250 hertz a tiny bit because I know that in the context of a recorded mix, that's usually where the snare hits. So I kind of just base my live tone off of how I more or less do guitar tones for mixing, because I know when I get into a venue, I've had a bunch of sound guys tell me that they really like working with my tones because I model them in such a way that makes sense for a mix, but that's a whole other story. Let's continue. So we're gonna go ahead and save that. So again, just adding a little bit more to this tone, a tiny bit of EQ shaping. You can go way more intense than I did with this. I just wanted a tiny bit of stuff in there. Also, the front of house guy at each venue can, you know, adjust it accordingly if they want. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next really quickly, this is like the basis of the rhythm tone, but I want a few more additional features. So I don't play too many leads in Carcosa, but I do play a couple. So what we're gonna do is actually create a split, and you can do this by pressing and holding on the screen. And then you see this S and M icon, and we just wanna drag the S to be after the cabinet, and then we want it to remerge before the EQ. So now you can see that our tone is coming in here, hitting the noise gate, the tube screamer, the amp, the cab, and then going down here to do a bunch of stuff, and then back to the EQ. So that's the way I have it set up, and the reason for that is because I want to be able to turn off and on my reverb and delay. So on this new path down here, all we have to do is start adding that. So first, I'm going to add the reverb. For now, let's just go with, I don't know, ambience. This is just for the sake of showing you what's going on. And then after that, we want to add a delay. So we're just going to go ahead and add a mono analog delay and leave it at that. So now you can see, again, we got input going to noise gate, tube screamer, amp, cabinet, and then splitting down to be reverb, delay, and then back to that EQ, and then finally out of the output, so it actually goes out. And the reason I want this on a separate track is because later I'm going to set this up so I can turn these off or on, and all of this stuff can stay exactly the same. I'm not too picky with lead tones because I don't use them very often, so I just use the exact same rhythm tone and just turn off or on delay. So it's going to be very simple. It'll make a little bit more sense in a second. And then the second thing I want to add is some pitch effects, because Carcosa does a lot of pitch shifting. So again, we're going to go back up here, and after the noise gate, add a block, and this one is going to be pitch and pitch shifter. And again, we're going to be controlling this with a foot switch later on because we don't want it to be pitch shifting all the time. For the song that I am going to be playing later in this video, I know that we pitch down to B. So from E to B would be D sharp, D, C sharp, C, B, so 5 steps down. So we're going to go ahead and pitch shift down by, I see. So we're going to go ahead and pitch shift down 5 semitones. So this will take my guitar signal from E down to B. And again, I like having this at the beginning of the chain before it hits any of that stuff. And we want the mix to be 100%. I don't want any of the drop E guitar. I want it to be fully pitch shifted. So that will be laid out like that. So there you have it. This is pretty much what I would do to create a rhythm guitar tone from scratch that has a few additional features. So again, we have the option now to pitch shift, to add reverb, and to add delay, all within one patch that is only using this many blocks. There's like a whole 2 other rows that I'm not even touching, so you can get way crazier with these tones. I just personally am not that picky. Okay, so the final step before we actually start playing a song is to set the Quad Cortex up for live use. What I like to do is I like to use something called scene mode, which you can see up there. And basically what this allows you to do is to change different parameters within this preset in different scenes. So what I like to do is I like to set up scene E, F, G, and H. Since these are closer to my foot, this is way easier than hitting the ones at the top. I think those are just bound to make mistakes that way. So I'll start out with E. So I've kind of started this process already, but as you can see for scene E, I have the pitch shifter, the reverb, and the delay all turned off. So this is basically my rhythm tone. Then next up, we want to go over to F, and you can see that when I switch to F, this pitch shifter block turns on. So this is the same rhythm tone, but the pitch shifter is turning on at -5. So again, this is pitch shifting down to B for this song in particular. And then next up for scene G, what I actually want it to do is a different pitch shift function. So I want it to go up 2 octaves rather than down. Unfortunately, I can't figure out a way to change the actual value of this block. If I change it here, it applies to all of it, which kind of sucks. So what we're going to do for C and G instead is just turn that off like so and save it. So now again, you can see when I switch between F and G, it's going to turn off and on. And I think what we need to do is make a new pitch shift block right here. So we're going to do the same thing, add a pitch shift block, pitch shifter, and this time I want it to go up by 2 octaves or 24 semitones. And what you want to do to apply it to only specific scenes is you press and hold the power button like so, and you go apply and save. And then now what we're going to want to do is go back to F and again do the opposite where we turn it off, save, and go to E and again turn it off there, save. So now you can see rhythm tone, both pitch shifters are off, F -5 is on, G double octave is on. So these are our 3 rhythm tones with different pitch shifting functionalities. And finally, when we go to H, I want both pitch shifters off, and we want to turn the reverb and the delay on. So again, go to reverb, press and hold the button, and turn it on, apply. Same thing for delay, press and hold the power button, on, apply, save. So now we can see we have 4 different scenes all set up within the same presets. We have rhythm, pitch shift down rhythm, pitch shift up rhythm, and then lead. So as you can see, blocks are turning off or on depending where I want to go. And then the last step is to actually swipe up on the screen, and you can actually rename these scenes. So we can go to scene E, for example, and edit the title of it and name it whatever we want. Cool, so now we can see scene E is now called rhythm. This would make it way easier if you're playing live, so you can look down at the ground and see which scene you're playing rather than just memorizing which letter it is. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's actually play some guitar. So I have my Aristides 080R in drop E tuning plugged into the Quad Cortex, recording straight into Reaper. I'm going to be playing through a song called Nothing. What you're going to be hearing is this guitar overlaid with all of the original tracks. I reduced the volume of the original guitar tracks to be like almost non-existent, other than Cooper, the other guitarist, guitar parts, who actually wrote this song as well, by the way. And depending how familiar you are with this song, you might notice that there's a couple things I've changed from the original recording. We do this dumb thing in our band where we like to write first and then figure out how to play it later. So naturally, when it comes to actually playing it live, some things might change. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get into it. This is a playthrough of Nothing. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the song I played, please go check out my band Carcosa. I will also upload this tone to the Cortex Tone Cloud. You can find that over on my profile. I'll put that on the screen. And now, last but not least, of course, the thing you have all been waiting for, the Quad Cortex giveaway. So like I said in the beginning of this video, it is sponsored by Sweetwater, and they are giving away a Neural DSP Quad Cortex. The entry qualifications are very simple. It's a giveaway. All you have to do is click the link in the description or the pinned comment below and follow those instructions. Anyone in the United States can enter, as well as Canada, other than Quebec, because they have some strange giveaway rules that I can't explain in this video. All you have to do is go check out that link in the description or the pinned comment below and follow those instructions. There are a couple of options to get bonus entries, such as following me on Instagram, YouTube, or clicking my Sweetwater affiliate link. All of those actions will get you additional entries to the contest, so be sure to take advantage of that. It obviously helps me out as well. And the winner of this giveaway will be picked on December 16th. So the giveaway runs from now until December 15th, with the winner being announced on Instagram the day after. Make sure that your information that you enter is correct, because I will be contacting you via email to get you sorted out and get your information over to Sweetwater so they can send you your brand new Quad Cortex. I also want to give a massive thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. If you're interested in getting audio downloads, guitar tabs, stems, or a shout out on the screen like these lovely people here, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page for most videos. That's all I got to say. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.